Hey there, you found Cameras and Car Seats, the podcast for photographers who are tired of being told to hustle harder while trying to remember if you grabbed diapers at your last Target run. I'm Jamie, your destination adventure elopement photographer who somehow manages to adventure with couples while raising tiny humans.
And I'm Alex, holding down the Lincoln logs in the Midwest traditional wedding scene, proving you can crush those weekend weddings and still make it to family dinner. If you're editing in the pickup line, scheduling client calls during nap time, or just trying to figure out how to run a profitable photography business without sacrificing your family life, you're in the right place. We're dropping real, actionable advice that actually works for mom photographers.
No bro marketing, no toxic hustle culture, just two photographer moms keeping it real about making this whole business thing work while raising our families. So grab your watered down iced coffee.
Ignore that pile of laundry for another hour or day.
And let's dive into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cameras and Car Seats. So today we're going to talk about marketing and things that you can be doing in 2025 to help grow your business and honestly just market in a fun way that feels like you.
I think things are leaning toward more authenticity, and I am thriving on that. Mom life is messy and it is real, and I think people are starting to crave that realness and not such curated.
So I'm curious, Alex, why don't you just tell everybody like what are you currently doing right now in marketing that you feel like is working for you?
For me, I feel like before I used to try to do too many things at once, and so I've really pared back, and I spend most of my time, I would actually say most of it's TikTok. And then Instagram is probably a good second as far as social media goes.
Do you have like a favorite? Do you feel like you hang out more on TikTok, more on Instagram?
I feel like TikTok is where I can be more real and be more me. But it's funny because I don't market my business too much on TikTok. I think I use that as more of like my hobby outlet. And then when it comes to business, I use Instagram. But I do feel like Instagram is just slightly more curated or planned out.
Well, and I feel like because Instagram, like the feed, and I don't know if it's just because like that's what we're used to because Instagram has been around longer and you're just used to like going to someone's profile and you're like, oh, okay, this is cohesive. This looks nice. And then like with TikTok, I feel like TikTok actually has been around for almost 5 years now. And we're just kind of used to the messiness of TikTok.
Yeah, people look at Instagram as like almost a little portfolio, right? But TikTok, I feel like nobody is going and looking at like a feed necessarily and being like, oh, this looks really pretty. Like TikTok is like FaceTiming your best friend and Instagram is like, hey, here's an intro to me in a more curated way.
Yeah. Like I actually really like that comparison. It's almost like saying that TikTok is your like bedroom and like it's kind of messy, laundry everywhere. And then Instagram is like the outside of your house with your nice pretty lawn.
Yeah.
Even though it's winter.
Yeah. Your nice pretty snow.
So I feel like what are like some of the, like, do you feel like you're doing like trends on Instagram, TikTok? Like what kinds of things are you posting on social media that you feel like have helped like either grow your ideal audience or who you're talking to?
I definitely post differently on TikTok versus Instagram. With Instagram, and if I'm posting reels or content, it's going to be serving who I want to be serving. So I'm talking more to my clients and addressing their pain points or helping them like in areas that they're trying to plan. And so I definitely use more hooks and stuff on Instagram. Like, hey, if you want a seamless wedding day timeline, this is what you need to do. And then have more information in the caption. TikTok is more like go with the flow, kind of fun.
Do you ever feel like you're running into an issue recording content? Because I feel like for me, it's because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I can only record content at certain times just because I don't show my boys on my business accounts anymore. So I'm just like, how are you going about recording stuff? Like,
yeah, I very rarely show my kids on my social medias. Most of my like behind the scenes content and stuff like that is when I can remember to record on the day of a wedding or at a shoot. It's kind of more like my behind the scenes. Sometimes I'll set up my phone and just like, if you're sitting there editing something, that's an opportunity to create content. Like just set up your phone. Even before I even bought a tripod, I would just like stack up some books or something and like put my phone out, hit record and record like 5 to 10 seconds of me just editing, sitting at, well, now I have a standing desk and I highly recommend.
Oh yeah. I love my standing desk.
Yes. And my walking pad. So I would just like set that up and record it and share that. And you can share helpful little tips or whatever just through that.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm curious. So you have TikTok, you have Instagram. What other things are you currently doing right now?
So working a little smarter and not harder here. My Instagram is also linked to my Facebook business page. So anytime I post on my Instagram, it also gets forwarded to my Facebook. So then it looks updated and it looks like I'm active there, because if people can find me through that avenue, but without actually having to take the time and post separately to both.
Yeah. I do the same thing.
Yeah. I occasionally, though, too, will post on Pinterest and also SEO, Google, blogging, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, and I feel like it's not only a mom hack to work smarter, not harder, because like we have to hustle in different ways in our business, and Google and SEO and blogging, it's a long-term game, but it is going to help you not only with not having to be on social media all the time, but like you're going to be able to enjoy mom life more, but still get the clients you want, because Google is going to bring in clients forever versus like a social media post. I believe I saw somewhere that like social media, you have 48 hours after you post something, and then that post just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. I saw there was that. And then Pinterest, the average lifespan of a Pinterest pin is 3 months.
Which is crazy, because it's like you spend all this time trying to make sure that your content looks pretty and good, but at the same time, everything has a shelf life.
Exactly. So even when it comes to content, no matter where you're posting it, I think one good tip too is realizing how many pieces of content you can get out of one thing. So even people are like, oh, I don't want to post, like I already posted this session. First of all, not everybody sees your posts. I feel like it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, I already posted that. But literally only like a fraction of people are even seeing your posts anyway. So for you to be posting it again, people aren't going to be noticing that. And obviously, unless you're like blasting, like that's the only thing you're posting. But another thing to do too is you can share like close-ups, crops, anything. You can get so much content from just one session. So don't ever let the lack of sessions or whatever stop you from posting. And you can do the same thing with behind the scenes videos too. You can get different angles. You can crop it. Like you can just get so like, I think it's an excuse that we make sometimes. Like, oh, well, I just don't have enough content, but it's like, you can get creative. I've
repurposed captions. So like I save my captions in like my notes app on like my notes app, Apple. So like I have saved a caption that I really like, and then I'll repost it like a couple months later. And sometimes the second time I post it, it hits better than the first time because more people saw it the second time. And that honestly, sometimes it's just the game of social media is you posted it at a different time, or like the right people saw it, the right people shared it the second time around, or even the third time around, but like it's still good content.
Exactly. I've even done it too, where I will just use a different hook. Like I'll use the same caption, but I'll use a different hook just to test out what kind of hooks work better.
Yeah, no, and like with Reels and TikToks and video being so popular, you can even use different audio, different trending sounds, and like you could cut it a different way. There's so many different ways you can use the same content over and over again, because as long as you don't change your brand and those are still the people you want to be serving and those are the people you want to be reaching, that content still applies to those people whether or not you've shared it before.
Exactly. Do you have any like strategy or anything that you use to find trending sounds or audios or anything?
So I feel like I don't always look for trending audio. Honestly, like one thing that I do is I post on TikTok a lot more than Instagram, and I kind of treat TikTok as a giant Instagram story. Because I absolutely love storying on Instagram. I love just talking to people, just being like, hey, this is what I'm doing today. And I started doing the same thing on TikTok, and I noticed my audience start to grow significantly because they're like, oh, this is so funny. And like, I'll use the photo. So when I'm on TikTok, I'll just take a photo like, oh, and caption it like I would like on Instagram. And then like TikTok does this thing where they kind of look at your photo and see what it's about, and then they just apply an audio to it. And half the time I just share it with whatever audio TikTok picks. And it's honestly sometimes really funny, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it works. And like, that's my kind of humor. So it works for my audience.
Yeah. With TikTok, I definitely let TikTok pick my audio 90% of the time. With Instagram, I will look for that little trending arrow and I'll click it. And if it has over 5,000 uses, but under like 20 to 30,000.
Well, and I feel like honestly, you're better at Instagram reels than I am. Like I like hanging out on the little TikTok clips, but like I feel like you do really good on Instagram reels.
I don't know why. I think it's because I kind of found like my own little science to it. And so then it's kind of fun for me to be like, okay, no, this one has too many, but not enough views, like whatever. So when it comes to content and stuff, do you batch your content?
I don't batch my content because so like with social media, I want to have as much fun as possible. So like I love posting in the moment, and granted, I'm on stories almost every single day. So like, it's not that I'm not on social media. I am. I'm just not always posting like a feed post on Instagram, but I do try to post at least 3 times on TikTok every day, just because I'm trying to get our podcast out there and I'm trying to get the box sets out there. And I am also trying to book out my calendar for 2025. So I am more on TikTok right now, but I'm also sharing everything that I've done from the year. But I personally love posting in the moment on Instagram because that's just more me. But like I found batching certain things just didn't work for my schedule, and which is kind of funny because like I'm a busy mom, but like I felt like batching some of it sometimes it kind of just took away the joy.
Mm-hmm. I don't batch mine either. I just go with the flow.
And I know for some people it's like the complete opposite. Like certain things they have to batch, but for me, batching social media just took the fun out of social media.
It like
for me.
added another task to your to-do list.
Yeah. But like I absolutely love batching other tasks in my business. Like right now I'm batching blog posts for 2025. I'm getting all of those scheduled so that I know I have fresh content for my website, which will make Google happy next year. But like other things I will totally spend a whole day batching.
Emails.
Social media, not one of them.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So if somebody were to say, hey, Jamie, I'm sitting down, I'm looking at my marketing for 2025. What is one tip that you would give them?
Google. Preach. Literally Google.
I was hoping you'd say something else so that I could have that answer.
No. Okay, seriously though. So blog, like I know I just talked about blogging, but like making sure your website is up to date, making sure that your metadata on your website, your images are labeled a certain way, and then that you are blogging good content, not just I photograph in Colorado weddings, Colorado wedding photographer.
People can tell when it sounds like AI wrote your blog post.
Yes. Like it is a task, which there are amazing blog writers out there. I've actually hired 2 blog writers in the past just when I got busy. But like legit having those blogs and then talking to Google, but also talking in those blogs to your ideal client. So yes, you are trying to integrate keywords so that Google finds you and that your ideal clients find you, but the blog post needs to have good written content that will help your ideal client.
Yeah, it needs to be shareable and it needs to be like digestible for your client. Like you're sitting there helping them.
And like if you are not findable on Google in today's way of doing business, you're not findable. Like you can only do so much with social media, and honestly, you don't own social media. So if you are not taking control of your website and putting your content out there on your website, which you own your URL, then you're putting your eggs all in one basket, so to speak. Exactly. And you have to spread yourself out with marketing. You shouldn't always only do one thing, like only do social media or only do Google. You want to spread yourself out a little bit so that you're sprinkling in people from different avenues.
Yes. I have a quick Google tip too. If you're like hearing SEO and you're like, this is just a lot for me right now. One tip that has really helped me too is if you have shot a wedding at a specific venue, or you shot a family session indoor at some location, or wherever you're trying to get business, go to that Google business profile and leave a review with the photos that you took.
I have I think it's over 200,000 now views in my photos and like these are genuine reviews. I'm not saying leave fake reviews, but I go and review every venue, every vendor. I drop photos, and like one, like everybody likes to read a Google review. Like I got a 5-star review from a client today and I'm like, oh, thank you. Yeah. But like so it's not only helping those vendors that you've worked with that, like, it's like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but like you're the photographer. So you have the photo proof of it. And then people can see your photos on those Google reviews and they're like, oh, these people have already worked together.
Yes. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And it's super easy and simple to do. It's something that you can sit and do in an afternoon and just be like, okay, here, I put those out. Cause yeah, I just got an email too, like a couple days ago. I think one of mine's at like 100,000 or something like that.
Nice. Also with Google, so SEO, Google, like when I first was hearing about that too, I was like, what does that even mean? Like what? But like, I have reached out to different people in the industry, and I know you have too. We've invested in different educators. I specifically, if there's something I want to learn, I find that person who's doing it really well, and then I pay them for them to teach me.
Yes. So it always will save you time and money and effort and energy if you just learn from somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Literally you took the words right out of my mouth. Cause like I recently learned how to do Google ads earlier this year. And so Google ads is one of my marketing techniques that I'm doing right now into 2025. And I know that you've had success from Google ads this year. I want to say your calendar is almost completely full now.
It is. I'm at 19 weddings for next year.
Which is so awesome. I love that for you.
I have booked 17 or I think it's 18 now. 18 weddings in the last 3 months.
And how many posts on Instagram is that from? That's all from doing Google.
That's all Google. I think a couple in there were vendor referrals, which is something that we can also
Yes. Okay.
about.
So like I was going to say, like, pivoting besides outside of Google, I feel like we have given Google all the love. Yeah. But if you are in more, and I feel like you can speak to this more too, because I feel like it applies more to the traditional wedding space versus just like the elopement space, which is network marketing. Granted, I do have some planners and some florists that I still network with, and I feel like I have connections across the US because I am destination. But with you, with more local and like people that have like more of a local market, can you just like talk about how big?
Yes. So even if you are starting out or you feel like you're in a lull or going into the new year, reach out to your local vendors. I spent, like a couple months traveling. I would literally take meetings 2.5 hours away just to sit down for like 15 minutes with some of these venues and vendors and everything to build a personal in-person connection. I think that in-person connections make all the difference. It's so much different than saying, hey, whatever, like on Instagram, a DM. When you step out of that and into the real world and meet someone in person, I think it makes so much more of an impact and they're so much more likely to refer clients to you. So I have made connections with venues in the area that I want to work with, and I have booked some weddings through there because they sent couples my way.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, we are a human to human business. Mm-hmm. So like human connection is everything because you have human connection with your clients. It makes sense that like if you want more of a certain kind of client, you have that human connection with the vendors and the venues and people you want to keep working with.
Exactly.
Because like if you don't go out there and make the connections, then people are going to be like, well, your photos are pretty, but I don't really know anything about you. And like, I feel like it also talks about like being a personal brand, being personable, not only on social media, coming off as yourself, but like when you work these events too, because there's always somebody watching you. So like even at weddings, I've had people hire me from weddings because they're like, you are the photographer at so-and-so. So it's just like always making sure that you are coming across as like, yes, you're serving a certain client, but like say a wedding guest is watching you and they're like, you were like, I've had it before. People come up to me and they're like, you just look like you're having fun and like you love your job. And I'm like, that's literally my favorite compliment.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So another thing I think is huge too, to leave a lasting impression and help yourself in marketing is also client referrals too. So client experience. What do you think are some things that are important when it comes to the client experience?
Oh, okay. So communication is like my top thing. And I feel like we can go into that when we talk more about like workflows and automation and how to like make that better. But just like, even if you're doing everything manually, even if you are totally new to this, making sure that you are transparent with your clients, not only from your website, but every point of contact. So every email, every text message, every time you meet in person, and just being as clear and honestly, in a way, over communicating.
Yes. So I send out an expectation email when my clients book with me. And so they know I'm a mom. They know that I have other things outside of my job. And even though I love my job and that is a huge part of my life and a big priority to me, they also know then my windows of communication, where to reach me, where to not reach me. And so I think laying down those expectations, and then on your website and everything, being honest about who you serve, because you don't want to just be posting out there, I will book any wedding, every wedding, whatever, because we all have special touches that we add.
People want an expert in the exact thing they're searching for. Like, people aren't going to come to me for a Catholic wedding. They look at my website and they're like, she's scaling a mountain.
Yeah. So I know for me, when people reach out to me, the most common thing I hear is, I love how natural, candid, and in the moment your images are, and that's what we want. What do people say to you the most when they reach out to you?
I feel like the one thing when people reach out to me, they're like, you look like you know what you're talking about with elopements. We want an expert on someone that can guide us to do the non-traditional thing. We know we want the non-traditional thing, but like, we don't really know how to achieve that. And just looking at your stuff, it's like your images are gorgeous, but like, holy crap, you look like you know what you're doing.
Right. Like permits and what day to arrive, like where and who to talk to and how to plan. Yeah. Like all of that stuff.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I do know what I'm talking about, and I do know what I'm doing. So it's always like a compliment too, when it's like, we know we want a mountain. We know we want to do this. We know we love your photos. Everything else, please help.
Right. Yeah. Like one thing I say to my clients too, when they reach out and they say like, most of the time they've never had their pictures taken before. And I'll say like, one of my favorite things to do is make people comfortable. Mm-hmm. I love to make people comfortable. I love to get real candid images that are natural. And those are the most common clients I get, because that's what I put out. And so to be able to get people comfortable and really connect with people in that way is huge. So if you are like a fine art photographer and you know how to get everybody in the perfect lighting and whatever, like emphasize that.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. And like, when it comes to marketing, you always want to put out there what you want to do. Don't put something out there if you don't want to do it. So like for me, when I switched in 2019 to elopements and destination work, I took down a lot of my work. I took down some of my blog posts that were more geared towards traditional Midwest weddings, because I just didn't want to do them anymore. It's not that I was mad at them or anything like that. It's just, I didn't want people coming to me disappointed when I told them, hey, unfortunately, I don't do this anymore. Granted, I still refer those out. I still get occasionally like, my brother's best friend, he reached out to me. He's like, hey, I know you don't do these kinds of weddings. Do you have some friends? And I'm like, of course I have friends. Thank you for asking me.
Yes.
It's just like, I purposely tried to show the adventure, the luxury, the high end sort of elopements that are like helicopter, because those are the things that I like doing the most. Those are the things I want to book, so that when people know, they're like, oh, okay, this is what she does. Because if people can't see it, they won't know. So like, if you want to book more destinations, you need to go to those destinations. You need to show that you are talking about traveling, and you have to be very repetitive. And like, circling back to what we said earlier, repost your content, regurgitate. Like, you want to just keep talking about what you value, what you want to do, what you like doing, what your clients like. The more you talk about that, and the more you just keep putting it out there, people are going to get so familiar with your brand. They're just going to know, like, automatically, like, oh, that's Jamie. She's a cat lady. Her logo's the cat. She's always hiking. She's always in the mountains. She's always on a plane. Like, people just always know that. And the funny part is, half the time I'm sitting in my house editing.
Exactly. If you don't want to book it, don't show it.
Exactly. Moral of the story. Let me land this plane. Moral of the story.
Okay. So another thing too, can we talk about industry connections as far as other photographers?
Oh, yes. Because, I mean, obviously we're friends. We're
What?
Are we? No. But like having friends in the industry, someone that you can rely on, someone that you can call when you need help, anything like that is huge. Like, don't do this alone. This already is a lonely industry, but because I mean, for the most part, we're all solo entrepreneurs. Some of us do have teams of photographers, but if you can just have someone to call, to talk to, bounce ideas off of, if you need help, but also in a way, like it is still at the end of the day, it's all about who you know, because if somebody knows that they could do a job better, they're going to refer you.
Right, exactly. So I know Jamie and I have referred weddings back and forth too. So those industry connections that you make with other photographers too, it can help you both in the long run. If you're booked on a wedding day and you get an inquiry, you send them their way and they'll return the favor.
Yeah. And like even outside of photographers, I have planners, I have florists. There's certain DJs that they're just like, oh, always. And like I feel like the way I want to say it is like, surround yourself with people that praise your name in a crowded room. Like those are the people you want to be around. And like, don't just like message people and be like, hey, do you want to be like, do you want to bounce referrals back and forth? You want it to be a genuine connection, which a genuine connection and friends does take time to build. I'm not saying it's not hard, but the more you put yourself out there, and if you go to certain events, and there's Facebook groups, like we have like the Cedar Valley Photogs group where we try to meet up and get coffee and just vent about mom life and business and how's everything going. Like just go to those meetups, talk to people. Like you will find your people. Sometimes it takes time, but it's worth it.
It is for sure. So going into the new year, what could we say then are our biggest key takeaways for marketing? I
think, well, and I know we both in the past have tried meta ads. And I know meta ads work. It's just, it does take a lot of trial and error as well as a budget. So you can try meta ads. I do recommend reaching out to a coach that is very good at meta ads, because it's good to just have someone in your corner that can help you break down the analytics, especially if you're new to it. Same with Google ads. I'm focusing a lot more on Google and SEO because between mom life and business life, I personally, I'm trying to step away from being tied to social media. I like having fun on social media, but as my kids get older, I'm trying to have more of an offline presence without trying to spend as much time on my phone as I already do.
Right.
But so like I would say Google, meta ads, and just being very consistent with your content and speaking to your ideal client with that content. So every time you post, make sure it's not just a heart, love you. It's or like so-and-so got married, the end. Like I'm not saying that's not funny. Every once in a while, that's totally funny. Like I don't have a caption in my head. Here we are. But like,
I think I did that the other week.
You totally did that the other day and I laughed. But like, honestly, like that, but that's still like saying it in a way that's on brand. And like when you write your captions, like one of my best tips is turning the like dictation on and just talking to your phone and do like voice to text, because then it's exactly how you talk.
Exactly.
As a caption.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say being consistent on social media with making sure you're always serve your ideal client. Like don't just post to be like, hi, my name is Jamie.
Right. So you don't have to do all of the things, but do remember that it is going to take trial and error to figure out what works for you. I know that I don't know about you, Jamie, but I know that I spent so much time on each and everything, like on Pinterest, on Instagram, on Facebook. And then when I finally found like, oh, Google is working for me, then I put more effort and energy into that, because don't fix what isn't broken.
Oh, and like that brings up a valid point. And I track everything. So I have I love spreadsheets. But like I have a spreadsheet that shows where my inquiry came from, and like everything like that. So I can grow what is working, and I can spend time and money into what is working and not have to guess and be like, well, I think they came from following me on Instagram.
Right.
And it's always good to track, because you can't grow what you don't track.
Exactly. I have the same thing. And then it'll even say like, okay, did they respond after my like initial inquiry response email, or did they ghost me there, or did they book a consult, or did they ghost me after that? So then you can kind of see in your workflow what is working and where most people are dropping off.
Well, and like, I know that everything we're saying right now, it's like, oh, that's going to take time to make. Yes. And initially it is going to take time to set these systems up. But once you have these systems, you just go through and be like, okay, this person ghosted right away. This person ghosted after pricing. This person ghosted before the consult call, or this person canceled the consult call and never heard from them again. But like this way you can be like, you can figure out like, are my leads coming to me and are they price qualified, or am I getting the wrong audience? Am I not talking to the right people? So you can refine where your marketing's going, refine who those leads are. And if those leads are booking, you know you're hitting the mark. But if they're not booking, you can try to figure out where in your marketing funnel is falling short.
Exactly. You can see if people are just reaching out just to reach out, and like, okay, they're not vibing with the style that I'm wanting. So, okay, I'm not marketing my style and my approach the correct way. Or, oh, these people are like, seem great, but then our ideas of pricing are off. So I need to change something there, or I need to do a better job of conveying why I am worth that price.
Yeah. It's like, there's so many reasons to track everything, because like once you have it all laid out in front of you, it makes so much more sense. Because like I ran into an issue when I first rebranded. It was like people were still coming to me for traditional Iowa weddings. And I was like, okay, I really need to hone in on elopements. And this is who I'm trying to serve. This is my ideal client. And like sometimes I look at my Instagram post and pretend I'm talking to that person to make it easier. Just so I know, okay, so I'm getting this person in my audience, but am I serving them like the right way that they know I'm the photographer for them?
Exactly. Because my life revolves around coffee, I pretend that I'm on a coffee date with them, sitting at a table, looking at my ideal client and having an actual conversation with that person. Like, how can I serve them? How can I help them? What would we be talking about? What would they be asking? And every time I go to make like a post or a blog post or anything, I put myself in that context. So then that way it just feels more natural and it is serving them.
So if we were to wrap this episode up, what would be like 3 things to tell a photographer to do right now as we're going into booking season, as we're getting ready for, like, we have a couple months and 2025 wedding season's going to start soon. What are your like top 3 things that you would tell a photographer to focus on and do for their marketing?
First, I would say get your systems in place. Like we were saying, it'll take time, but that time saves you in the long run. So getting those systems set up in place so that you know what's working, what's not working, and where you can focus more on instead of spreading yourself too thin. Another thing would be, if you're thinking about, we're coming up on engagement season, right? So start posting now content that will serve couples who just got engaged. So maybe it's just tips on like a wedding planning timeline, what to plan when, like, or what type of like photography tips will help them during certain times throughout their experience. Posting things that will serve them so that way your content or your blog posts or anything is bingeable. If they can come to you and they can binge your content and read over everything, and you could constantly be serving them with information that you already put out, that will help you.
I also feel like a little side tangent on that would be like a lead magnet. So if you have an email list, you can nurture freshly engaged people with a lead magnet, like a guide to planning your wedding or anything like that.
Yes. I would say my third tip would be to make those in-person vendor connections that we talked about.
Yeah.
I think that is the other biggest thing that is going to help you long-term and pretty like instantly.
Well, and especially going into 2025 with all the AI that is out there now, which we use AI for certain things. But in my opinion, I don't know what you think, but I think people are still craving human connection. And I feel like that's never going to change about humans. Right. Is we are still going to want to feel like loved by another human.
Our brains are wired for connection and community. And so no matter what, we're always going to crave that feeling like somebody else gets it. That feeling of somebody else is there and they understand. From
your couples to vendors, networking is everything. You cannot do this alone. Don't do this alone. Come hang out with us.
Don't do it.
Okay, bye. No. Well, that's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
If you're vibing with these conversations, hit that subscribe button and maybe leave us a review. It really helps other mom photographers find us.
And hey, come hang out with us on Instagram at Cameras and Car Seats, where you can connect with us and other moms just like you who are trying to figure out this whole mom and business thing.
See you next Tuesday.